Transit-oriented developments, or TODs, which create communities around public transport hubs, are booming across Asia, including Singapore. We are joined by Lisa Tech from Huttons and Justin Kwek from Orange Tea and Thai to talk about this. Justin and Lee, how is transit-oriented development changing how urban renewal happens in Singapore?
You can look at it from the sense of blurring the lines of land zoning, right? We used to look at it in absolute silos, industrial, residential. That's one thing. The other thing to look at also is that even despite Singapore being a small island, we have noticed that you can now do a different kind of spread of different densities of real estate across the island, not just looking at it from a very traditional concentric spread from a city center. I think more importantly, why we also look at this today is because of maximizing land use and efficiencies as well, right? Basically intensifying areas around some of these transit nodes as well, to actually promote seamless and integrate seamless connectivity for the consumers as well.
For the transit-oriented developments, what we observe is that it comes from both perspectives. From the demand side, that means from buyers, from tenants, they have that preference for such developments because it brings them that convenience. Therefore, on the end, for the government authorities that when they do the planning, they will also factor that into consideration. And on the other side is also the developers. So they will also be waiting actually to undertake such development. So the whole change of development from the upstream all the way down to the buyers, everybody is receptive towards this kind of developments.
Now, just for better understanding, Lee, how do TODs affect public transit usage and urban sprawl within Singapore?
For transit-oriented developments, because of the convenience it actually brings to the residents staying there, because you combine transit as well as, say, a retail mall or even a office building over there, it can actually cut down on the traveling by the residents. So they could be living there, or some of the tenants could also be working in the office building. And when they need to, if they will just go downstairs to actually buy their necessities, things that they want. So they do not need to travel. And from that perspective, it can actually cut down on, say, the traveling, whether it's by private transport. If it's public transport, the public transport tends to have lower environmental concern. And even research also shows that if you are staying in such transit-oriented development, the private transport usage tends to be lower.
Yes, definitely. And I think in addition to that also, if you're looking at the example of Singapore, it's very interesting, right? Again, despite us being a small island, we actually look at this with a tremendous specificity, right? Because what we're trying to do now, as far as the government's concerned, is to do a decentralization strategy, right? Which is why we have a lot of other business centers popping out outside of the traditional central business district. But yet at the same time, despite us looking at this decentralized strategy as well, in trying to spread out the business activity throughout the island, and at the same time looking at some of these transit nodes to intensify with housing, so a whole live, work, and play element. At the same time, we are also actually looking in our traditional CBD to also enhance and improve. And the government has policies like the CBD incentive scheme and all that to start asking landlords or landowners or building owners to relook their existing floor spaces and their existing provisions as well, say an office building, right? And if this office building happens to be right next to a transport node, could there be ways to actually amalgamate and integrate different parcels of land around this and do a brand new concept to enhance and in fact improve the density of the property as well? So it's not just happening outside of the city in a decentralized kind of strategy, but in Singapore, actually, we're also looking back into the city to see how we can reinvent and integrate new services back into the city center.
And what about higher office rents? How are these in TOD areas like the downtown core and Jurong East affecting vacancy rates and business decisions? Justin?
If you look at the Singapore stock of office supply, believe it or not, but about 24% of the office supply actually today already sits outside of the traditional CBD. And in fact, if you look at many other countries, in Singapore, we have one of the, I would say, the closest gaps of price differentiation between a core business district pricing versus some of these other suburban outskirt office setups as well. And I think why this is happening, we have to look at it from a demand perspective as well, right? Not just a supply or a policy-led one. But today, if you speak to a lot of HRs in companies, when they're looking for office spaces, it is no longer just about being in a swanky address in the heart of town. But today, talent attraction comes from a myriad of other complexities to consider. So if you want to attract talent to your office space, you need to make sure your office space is not just well connected. It's even got spaces for entertainment, post-work, people want to gather for some drinks. Maybe lunchtime, they want to go to the gym. So there's a whole lot more consideration today coming from a human resource perspective that actually enables some of these places that are in the TOD areas outside of the city to actually have relatively higher rents. And the vacancy rates there are actually relatively low as well, even in comparing to the traditional CBD.
I would say one thing is that market move in cycle. So whatever that we can observe now, it may not necessarily hold true in the future, because we have gone through this quite a few times actually over since the early days of Singapore, where we had the CBD, and until now that we have the decentralization up towards whether it's Jurong East or even towards Paya Lebar itself. So all these at the end of the day, as long as the businesses find value, there's synergies for them to be in a particular location, they will be still willing to pay the premium in terms of the rent by relocating to a different location.
Thank you for joining us today, Justin and Lee.
My pleasure.
Once again, those were Lisa Tech, Senior Director for Data Analytics at Huttons, and Justin Quek, CEO of Orange Tea and Thai. For more news, visit sbr.com.sg.